Aloha, y'all, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, yogis and yoginis. No, I don't know if you fit any of those categories, though. Years ago, when I had my center in Bali, I used to start yoga classes saying that way, and I guess I felt a little nostalgic. So, what's up? Here we are. It's a Friday, and different than many things I offer, this is book reading time, where I read to you from this book, a book I wrote called The Art of Spiritual Leadership 40 Laws to Transform Your Life and the World, which, if you so desired, you could get at any of the major book sellers. Kindle or e-reader version, paperback, hardcover, or you could get the Audible version. The audiobook is only on Audible. And that leads to the question, Daniel, if you can get it in all those places and it doesn't even cost all that much, why are you doing it here? Well, it does cost something, right? So this is completely gratis, meaning no cost you nothing. And it's also a chance for us to interact a little bit. If you would like that, I would like that. That would be cool. I'm bringing up the little place where it allows for comments. So if you are with me live, cool. Feel free to chime in, say hi, where you at, and ask questions or make comments. Great. I will read, and while I'm reading, I won't read the comments. However, I will pause section by section and check the comments and we can chat. Or if you are watching this by rebroadcast, feel free to comment or question in that way too. And I will come around and check what you wrote. So I would love to hear from you and connect. That is our preliminary remarks. Those are our preliminary remarks. You know, it's a challenging thing with English because sometimes we start a sentence, but we don't know yet whether it's going to be singular or plural. So the verb tense, I don't know. This writer's mind, geeky grammar guy. In any case, here we are in chapter 3, which is entitled Rock Bottom. And we've spoken a bit about one of my rock bottoms, and we've spoken a bit about Tina Turner and some of her rock bottoms. So now, going deeper, this is page 90 from the hardcover. New section. When I was 15, my mother and I sat in the living room watching MASH, as we did almost every night, when the phone rang. As soon as mom answered it, even though she was in the next room and I was trying to watch the show, I knew something was wrong. There's a sense that comes even before the other person's tone changes. In a moment, the confirmation came via her voice and the words she used. Really? Well, that's wonderful. Mom's positivity felt real, though the fact that something had upset her was also apparent. Mom's skepticism and cunning in ascertaining people's true motives were legendary. Okay, sure, great. She grabbed a pen and pad from the table beside her and pulled the phone cord farther into the kitchen. I used the remote to turn down the TV and even crept toward the kitchen entrance to better glean what was happening. 2 days from now? The 26th? Yes. No. Sure. Yes. That's okay. I'm just surprised. Yes, I am happy. I'm thrilled. Are you kidding? I'm just nervous about finding the bus station, but don't worry. I'll be there. Tell me again? For a moment, the only sound I heard was the friction of Mom's lighter, then the first deep inhale on her new cigarette. Okay, got it. Yes, 4:23 p.m. Great. Yes, we can have Christmas dinner together, of course. There was a nervousness in Mom's voice I'd seldom heard before. "Yes, honey, I'll be there, don't you worry. Danny's off school and he'll help me find it." My observing gaze saw just her hand reach back into the TV room to hang up the phone. While the rest of her stayed silently in the kitchen, I tiptoed back to where I'd been on the sofa, picked up the remote, and slowly turned the volume back up. When Mom came back into the living room a few minutes later, cigarette in one hand, the black marker still absent-mindedly held in the other, her eyes seemed as glazed as the haze of smoke that hung around her head in the ceiling. She sat down before she spoke. I didn't have to ask what the call was about. "Your sister Casey's on a bus from California. She'll be here the day after Christmas." Mom and I lived in Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. Mom turned her face toward the TV and took a hard drag from her cigarette. Then she stubbed it out and reached for another. "Excuse me. I wanted to ask for more info." I could tell that Mom didn't know much, and that asking her anything right then would have been fruitless. The commercials were over anyway. It had been years since we'd seen Casey. I was born in Maine, and my parents divorced when I was a baby. In the ensuing years, everyone in our family had moved to different places around the country. After Casey had been expelled from Freiburg Academy, and after Dad had kicked her out, she'd gone to San Diego, where our brother Dylan lived. I didn't know what had happened out there, though I did know that Mom was continually angry at Dylan. I'd heard her yelling into the phone a few times after she thought I was asleep. Mom had said enough for me to know that Casey wasn't doing well and that Dylan, too, had finally kicked her out. It might not have been my place to ask either Mom or Dad what was going on with Casey, yet the real reason I didn't ask more was I didn't want to think about it. Mom and I continued to watch TV that night in silence. Mom didn't say more, and I didn't ask. Next up was The Cosby Show. On December 28th, Mom went back to work. That left Casey and me home alone, sort of like the old days back in New England when Casey and I were the only remaining kids in the family. Even at the age of 15, I was happy to have my big sister home. I'd finally gotten the Atari video game system for Christmas that year, and although I was the last of my friends to get it, I was still plenty excited. Casey slept late, then made herself a coffee and sat on the sofa smoking while I set the game system up. We sat cross-legged on the floor, heads craned up toward the TV, joysticks in our laps, playing hockey. Casey had surprising skill in every game we played. Still, I was winning when she froze in the middle of a point. Her fingers suddenly stopped moving, and her players turned into ghost-like images, putting up no defense. Then she craned her neck even farther up, staring at the ceiling. I continued my offensive strike and scored what felt like a meaningless goal. "Do you hear them?" She kept her gaze fixed. I thought she was playing me, trying to trick me away from paying attention to the game, but there was something in her voice that told me she was serious. Then I knew she had completely forgotten the game. "Ooh, Casey." Now I was torn between aggravation that she had interrupted our play and curiosity over what was going on. Part of me was already on high alert. I put my joystick down. "Who? Do I hear who? What are you talking about?" Without moving her face, her eyes darted over the section of the ceiling above the TV. "They're up there." Her voice had taken on a toneless quality now. "They're up there watching me. They're always watching me." The annoyed and curious parts of me dissolved. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end. "Who, Casey? Who do you think is up there?" "Them," she replied after an ominous pause. I shook my head. "No one is up there, Casey. No one could be up there." She didn't say anything else, but she also didn't take her gaze off the ceiling. Her eyes kept flashing back and forth as if she were tracking movement. I knew this house. I'd been the only one up in that crawl space since we had moved in. Just this past summer, I'd been up there nailing chicken wire over the vents because Mom was afraid squirrels would get in. "Come on," I said to her, getting to my feet. "I'll show you. No one could be up there." She didn't move, but when I reached down toward her and repeated it, "I'll show you," she let me lead her to the laundry room where the cutout square of ceiling opened to the crawl space. I grabbed the flashlight from the cabinet and put it into her hands. "I'll show you." For a split second, I allowed a shiver of doubt to zing through me. What if she's right? What if there really are people up there? I shook my head, and my desire to get to the bottom of it redoubled. I hoisted my pudgy self up onto the washing machine, then carefully placed our step stool at its center. I didn't go all the way up into the room above. With my feet on the stool and my head in the room below, I told Casey to hand me the flashlight. She did so, obeying me almost like a child. Her being my older sister felt incongruent with her docility in that moment. As you picture that younger me receiving the flashlight from Casey, to make this story even more directly useful to you, bring online another aspect of yourself. One part is simply listening, reading, and engaging. Perfect. Now bring in another part of yourself, the one that's known as the observer, the witness. In this case, that observer part is becoming extra curious, not just about what's going to happen, but about what's happening inside each of these characters. You're turning yourself into a detective, a practical psychologist, by which I mean engaging the capacity we all have for curiosity about others' fears, motivations, and beliefs. We do this innately all the time. Now, though, it's time to extend that capacity as a way of better understanding the people and the world around us and to understand ourselves better. You don't need a university degree to use your extensive experience with being human to wonder what Danny and Casey are experiencing. What stories are they forming about life, about themselves? We shall pause there. Y'all, thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being interested in making your life a masterpiece. I will be back next week, same time, same place, with the next session segment. Peace part. All right, y'all. Thanks so much. Hasta la pasta.